Welcome to Mediumship by Picasso. My name is Picasso Roberts. I want to say thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I appreciate the support. While you're here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share. And to let you know, today's going to be another Getting to Know You series event. I have a special guest. As you can see, you're my actual first gentleman on the Getting to Know You series. I like
Honored.
Yay. I like to welcome Trece Spalten, all the way from Texas.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me today, Picasso.
You're so welcome. And yeah, I'm so glad you're my first guy on the channel. So that's pretty cool.
Honestly, in the psychic medium world, that's not the first time I've only been the first guy or the only guy in many of those circles, although that's changing now, which I love.
Yeah, so we're seeing more and more of the guys stepping into the circle of the healing arts and, and mediumship. What's weird though, Trace, is that like over in the UK, there's a lot of guys that are doing this work, and they
Yes.
started, the men started, over there. So
With
anyway.
the Arthur Finley College and all of those things going on over there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just might have been where, in those days, women were probably not able to have their voice as much as we do now. So that could be a part of it as well. Well, listen, everybody, I just want to let you know, Trece Spalten is an intuitive medium and healing arts practitioner, bringing hope and clarity to people seeking guidance and purpose. I mean, how cool is that, Trece?
Oh, thank you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I read that on your, I guess maybe it was on your site, and I was like, you know what? I got to say that out loud because people should hear it.
Yeah, it took me a long time. It seems like a very simple statement, but it took me a long time to really craft it and really feel like that I was really saying exactly what it is that my work is about in a very clear and simple way. And it really, even from that statement alone, I could even narrow it down even further to being about purpose. Because whether I'm doing an intuitive reading for somebody, if I'm doing a mediumship reading for somebody, if I'm doing ancestral healing work with people, in the end, what I really help people do is remember what it feels like to be them again and what it feels like to have their inner compass back.
Yeah. I think it's just phenomenal. I think you chose exactly the right words, and I like it how it is. I hope you don't trim it down.
No, I'm going to leave it as it is, but I've just been
Yeah.
really focused on that purpose part lately and realizing that everything I do, even though it seems all kind of different, really focuses around purpose for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, I understand that you're in Austin, Texas. Is that correct?
I am, yep, Austin,
Okay.
Texas.
And you have, now, are you from Texas or are you from somewhere else?
I was born in San Antonio, Texas, and then my
Okay.
family moved all around the country when I was younger until I was probably about in fifth grade, and we didn't stay any place long. So, and my mom is from the Michigan, the northern part of the country, and so we've traveled and have family spread out all over. But a lot of my life has been in Texas.
Nice. And so you and your husband live in Austin,
Yes, we do.
and congratulations on that, by the way. You guys make the best couple.
Oh, thank you.
I I see sometimes your pictures on Facebook, and I love it. I love the match. I think it's just a beautiful match.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
I sure love him, so I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked a few minutes about this before we came online, but you have fur babies in the house.
Oh,
How
yeah.
many? How many, and what are their names?
We have four animals. I like to refer to them as our magical menagerie because we have one dog whose name is Sierra, and she's a mix of a Carolina dog and probably a shepherd and maybe a little bit of a lab. She was a rescue that my husband got before we even met. And then the other three are cats, and they're all black cats, and they all came to find us and live with us. So we didn't even pick any of them out. And so, and their names are Vivian, who's my oldest cat, who I've had for a long time, and then the twins, because they came together from our backyard tiny forest, is what we call it. And their names are Jet and Francis, after the ants from Practical Magic.
when I was checking some of the things that you do, you also do Reiki. Are you a Reiki master?
I am a Reiki master. And as a matter of fact, I just found my certificate for my Reiki 3 certification because that actually happened when I was a teenager. Okay, so I think I got my Reiki 3 in like 1999 or something like that, 1998. And because I have been on the spiritual path and like, do not stop me. I'm going to find out what this means. I'm going to meet other people like me. I mean, we're talking riding my bike to psychic fairs across San Antonio when I'm 14 years old to go meet these people. You know what I mean? And so that's how I met my original Reiki master. And I recently found the certificate. Yeah, it's from like 1999. And I was like, dang, it just looks different when you're almost 40 looking back at your teenage self getting Reiki attuned, you know? So
yeah. Oh, please wait till you get to your 50s.
yeah. Yeah.
So along those lines, you talk about being 14 and you know, seeking kind of your path. When was your first experience either with mediumship or with psychic work?
Well, I'll give you my 2 most memorable experiences, and they were both pretty young. The first one I would say was mediumship, although maybe not classic, because when I was about, let's see, when I was about 4 years old, maybe almost 5, I had an experience of playing with a little girl in my room who wasn't there. And she told me she was my sister, right? And so after that happened, I started asking my parents where my sister was, right? And I wanted to meet my sister. And even to the point where I sat on Santa's lap that year for Christmas in the mall and asked for my baby sister for Christmas, right? And so it was this big kind of joke, because my parents were not trying to have another kid, but they ended up, without trying, getting pregnant again. And 9 months later, here came my baby sister.
So she was just saying hello before she came in, really.
Before she came in, yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, I had a very common experience for a lot of young mediums, which is that as soon as the lights went out in my room, it was filled with people. They were looking at me, right? And they weren't ever doing anything scary, but it's creepy to have weird, shadowy people just looking at you in your room, right? So that was an early experience. And then with the psychic stuff, I made one of my earliest predictions when I was in 4th grade, walking to school with my next door neighbor. And I told her it was going to snow in San Antonio on Christmas that year. And that information made its way through a very long story to a radio DJ at a radio station called Magic 105.3. And he put me on the air live to make that prediction. And it did snow, probably like 10 flakes or something like that. But still, it snowed on Christmas in San Antonio. And he actually worked with my parents to have me come back on the air for the next 5 years, 3 days a week, intuitively predicting the weather.
Really?
I had my own segment called Kid's Eye View of the Weather.
Man, why couldn't I find that on the internet? I was looking for different things, and that would have been really cool to pop up. Do you still have any footage?
I don't have any footage. It was all on the radio, but I'm surprised what you didn't find is that that story made its way to a local playwright here in Austin, and she wrote a 10-minute musical about me and me predicting the weather called Kid's Eye View. And I do have some audio clips from that. And you can still find that on Facebook if you look up Kid's Eye View. And there's a picture of me as a little kid with a little umbrella holding it up there that's on the cover of it.
Oh, that's cool. Do I have permission to use that?
Yeah, if you could definitely link to the Facebook group for sure.
Okay, cool. Either if I can't get it, then I'll reach back to you and say, hey, send me that.
Yeah, totally.
That is so cool. You know, I wish so many of the mediums and the psychics that I've talked to, they had the experience when they were young, like you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, it would have been really nice to have had started out that young and to get an idea. I didn't start out until like way much later in life. So I'm glad that you had that experience. It's pretty cool.
Well, let me tell you, Picasso, it was really cool. And I am very grateful that it was so real for me at such a young age, right? Because it wasn't a question about something was happening. I just didn't know what. I didn't have the context for it, right?
Yeah.
And so that was great. But I will tell you that not having that context and having those experiences can be very difficult.
Mm.
And so I've worked with a lot of kids. I've had parents reach out to me with their kids' burgeoning mediumistic and psychic abilities, not really knowing what to do and wanting support. And I really just have to say that that is one of the most gratifying things that I do. And it's just so nice to know that there's parents out there that want to support their kid in that versus telling them it's imaginary, versus kind of brushing it off, versus not really giving them the support, which I didn't really feel like I had. My parents weren't anti it. They just didn't really, it was just like the weird thing that I was into or whatever. Like, oh, sure, Trece, you're psychic. You know what I mean? Like it um, wasn't ever very supported by my parents. And so sometimes I wonder if I had come out it later, if I would have felt more, maybe just supported in general and then felt more confident moving into it. Because it's been a learning curve for me, Picasso, even as a professional, to be honest with you, about really letting myself be seen for what I do. Because it was something that I kind of really had to keep private, even from my family, for a long time.
Okay. So it took them a while to really sort of accept it.
Yeah, and I can't say that they even really now accept it very much. I mean, like they don't say anything against it, but they never ask me about it. I'll tell you that for sure, right? They don't really want to know anything about it, which is also interesting to me because my mom is a reluctant psychic. I definitely get it from my mom and my mom's side of the family. And she's made predictions my whole life about things, and she's an animal communicator. She would never call herself that, but like, all of her friends are like, Carla, who's my mother, Carla could tame an alligator. You know what I mean? And so I get it from my mom, but I think it just moved too far. Some of the words are just too much. It's outside of their context, right?
It's a little what we used to call woo woo now.
Yeah.
I stopped using the term woo woo and I call it ethereal now, so that it's not as like unaccepted,
I do.
So looking on your website and some of the things that you offer, you have something called ancestral healing. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I like to share with people about that is that when I got to, in my own life, in my own journey, to ancestral healing, and my guides were telling me I was already on my path. Like I said, I was already doing Reiki. I was already working with my spirit guides, and they were like, you need to look into ancestral healing and connecting with your ancestors. And I was like, no, thank you. I was like, I've got enough problems with my living family. I don't need dead family messing stuff up. You know what I mean? I was like, no, thank you. And they were like, no, you really need to do this. It's going to be really important for you. And, and as intuition and spirit does, they led me through synchronicities and serendipities to the right teacher, to the right course at the right time. And it just really revolutionized my whole idea of what was happening with me and my family and in my life. Because, I was like, I've got enough stuff on my plate with my living family. I don't need the dead family stuff. And then I realized it was all the same stuff cycling through time on everyone's plate. Right. And it would just totally revolutionize the way I understood that. And so I spent about 7 years engaging my own ancestral healing. And then I eventually signed up once my teacher created a practitioner program. I signed up to get certified as a practitioner. And so I'm certified through an organization called Ancestral Medicine. And I also mentor practitioners in training through there. And I do also some classes through there, and so I'm pretty active over the ancestral medicine realm. And it's one of the things I like to tell people who don't have a lot of context for is I say it's the healing that everybody wants but doesn't know how to ask for.
Mm. Is that because it hasn't yet been uncovered?
Yeah, well, it's becoming so much more popular. You hear more about ancestors and ancestor work and ancestral healing than ever before now, right? So it's becoming more understood. But in the past, yeah, it was very much, it wasn't something that we did, right? We didn't do ancestor work, right? Maybe we talked to our loved ones on the other side, but they were usually very close generationally, chronologically loved ones on the other side. And
Yeah.
the focus, because a lot of it's been around evidence for mediumship, right? So you don't really want to focus on the great, 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 great grandmother because you probably don't have any information about her.
Yeah. You can't validate it. It wouldn't be something that you could just pull out of your, oh yeah, that
Right,
was my, you know, great, 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 great grandmother once, twice, third, three times removed,
right.
you know.
Yeah. So it wasn't really a focus for a lot of people, at least in a lot of contemporary Western culture, that ancestor reverence and ancestral healing and connection is not quite universal, but a very, very common practice in many cultures throughout the world and throughout most of time.
So it's recommended then, if you're on the healer's path or intuitive healing path, to do something like what you're doing and what you teach so that you gain the knowledge from your ancestors, right?
Absolutely. And one of the most common things along those lines, too, is that, you know, our ancestors, part of the reason there is, and this is called a bunch of things now today, right? Whether it's called the witch wound, right? Or about just being afraid to be outed as a psychic or coming out as a medium, right? And even that woo-woo and the stigma around that, right? Or I've even heard it called the light workers persecution imprint before that people are working on, right? And all of that is ancestral because our ancestors lived through the time, many of our ancestors, and granted, this is different for different people in different cultures and times, but many of our ancestors lived through a time of really great repression of the intuitive and a repression of the magical, a repression of the feminine, a
Yeah.
repression of the emotional. And so some of those fears and blocks we have around our own intuition or wanting to even be known that we have certain talents is ancestral.
Wow, that's fascinating. Now, how far back does your healer's ancestry go? I mean, were all of your ancestors healers, or
Oh,
like, you know what I mean?
no. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I would say, yeah, I would definitely say no. I say that I get the psychic ability I definitely see coming from my mom's side of the family, and I can see it
Okay.
in my mom, but I can't say that I have any knowledge of any of my ancestors within recent history that have also expressed these abilities in a public way or expressed this side of them in a public way. However, in doing this ancestral work, I have discovered much older ancestors that actually there was a whole cultural context for people just like me in my ancestral lines.
Mhm. That's pretty cool. Now, listen, what you also talk about on your site, and are well versed in indigenous medicine. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so a lot of that came from my work in studying with a Apache medicine woman named Marika Alvarado, who lives here in Austin, Texas. And I sought her out in her teachings because I really wanted to learn the healing traditions and practices of the land that I'm on, right? Like I had been doing Reiki for a long time, energy work for a long time, exploring my own ancestral healing traditions for, what's left of them in terms of what we can prove, right?
Yeah.
And not just receive from spirit, which are totally valuable, but I also like to have that concrete stuff there. But yeah, and so I sought her out and I started studying with her. And so I learned a bit of curanderismo, which is a Mexican folk healing practice and very popular and common here in Texas, as well as some of her medicine teachings at the same time. And so I include that in there to let people know that I have engaged with more traditional forms of spirituality and healing practice, not just maybe new age forms of healing practice as well. And it's also a way to say that I'm very committed to being inclusive cross-culturally with folks, and also a way of saying that I have a very earth-centered and earth-honoring focus in my work too.
Yeah, I'll tell you in just a little bit some of the visuals they gave me for you, and I could see exactly what you're talking about, how that ties in. Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, what would you say, Trece, is your most powerful sense? And we talk about the clairs and all of that, but I don't think you're so limited to just the clairs. I feel like you have so many other senses around and about you. So what would you say your most powerful sense is?
Gosh, I think I've avoided saying this for a long time because I feel like it's kind of considered the boring psychic sense, but it's clairsentience.
Mm.
Really.
I
I
don't
get
think that's boring.
Well, but a lot of people, you don't hear a lot of people talk about it. Like no one really describes themselves as a clairsentient very much. And a lot of times it's very much, it's like, oh, you get a feeling about something, right? But for me, when I get a feeling about something, I can like sit there and unpack that feeling and get so much detail and evidence and everything else from that feeling. And it expands out into my other clear senses as well. So it starts as a feeling and then a visual might come and then I might hear something with it, right? So it usually opens up my other clear senses at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'd say that that's probably my strongest. Even with mediumship, that's the way the information comes, is it feels like it's impressed on me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it steps in, almost the blending in of well, mediumship is about blending. So,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So, but I totally get, and I see what you're saying with that as well. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I kind of become it a little bit, right? More so. And so it feels
Yeah.
impressed. It's not just visual, it's not just knowing. It's like it's that blending. I'm becoming part of them and they're becoming part of me. Yeah.
What's so interesting, and you might be experiencing this as well. So many mediums that I'm talking to lately, or psychic workers that I'm talking to lately, are coming across the same thing where there's we're not doctors, so we don't diagnose. I would just say that out loud. An actual intuitive scan on the body where you tune
Mhm.
in to where the little hiccups and or pains or dis-ease is in the body. And so many of us are coming, like this is being honed and fine-tuned and so much a part of our awareness right now, and being able to help people get validation that, yeah, I do feel that thing.
Yeah, I'm just like you said with your caveat in the beginning. I always let people know if any kind of health information starts coming through. I'm like, and I'm just going to say it right now for the recording. I'm not a doctor. I do not diagnose. Everything I'm going to tell you needs to get verified by your medical professional, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm very much on that same vibe with you there. And yet, that sometimes has been some of the most profoundly accurate readings that I've done for people. And it's not purely, I don't have a health reading people can sign up for, but I've had clients ask, hey, I'm curious about this. Can you do a reading about this? And I've gotten some extremely specific information all the way down to like a nerve, something's going on in the middle of your brain that should be causing you migraines. Do you have headaches? And they were like, no, but they had a scan done and they do have a little thing in their brain that they were surprised they didn't have migraines for. And
Yeah.
so I've definitely done that work before. I find that to be sometimes the most sometimes the clearest amount of information comes from medical stuff for me.
Yeah. And it's so weird. I don't know about you, but for me, it just started coming out of the blue. Um, I don't know I don't know the wheres or the whys, but I'm just going with it. And clearly you're going with it as well. And again, for our listeners out there and people who are watching this, definitely, we don't diagnose, but when we're going through these things, these readings for you, it would be I feel it would be wrong to keep that information in.
Yes.
It's good to share it. You hand it over, you have free will, and you can do with this what you wish.
Well, and here's the value of it coming from a psychic, from an intuitive, from a medical intuitive. The value is that, doctors are also not perfect, right? Doctors don't know everything. We don't know everything, right? And so the way you get the best medical care is that you know what questions to ask and you know what to ask them to look for. And so you can take the information we give you and be like, hey, I'd like to look into these things. I have a question about this thing that you maybe have never would have asked your doctor about before.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the value, right? Is you
Yeah.
take what we're giving you to your doctor and it could open up a path that might be a lot clearer than trying a bunch of different things in the
Right.
beginning.
Exactly. So we're just working together. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me, Trace, what brings you joy?
Oh, what brings me joy? Baking brings me joy. That's something that's been the past few years. I really love baking. I think I just really like making beautiful things. Like I like to make pies and I like to make cookies. And so I like to make beautiful things and then eat them. And so
You know, and at the fall time, I want to come to your house.
I know because this is pie baking season for me for sure. So that brings me joy. And uh, bookstores, especially discount bookstores and old bookstores and buying books. I love books. That absolutely brings me joy. And spending time out in nature, particularly if there's water around that I can get in it.
Mm. Let me ask you, what, if any, one thing or a few things would you use to heal our earth?
Hmm. This is going to be maybe an answer that might not be expected. I would say relationship.
Okay. Your
Because
connection and your relationship to the earth. Yeah.
I think that that's honestly what's missing the most. We consider it just dirt or a dead rock or a resource to be exploited or
Yeah.
not having its own spirit in our language, right? Or not having its own aliveness. And so I think that part of the reason we're all such in disarray right now is because we have lost that lived, embodied, felt sense of true spiritual connection to the earth, to our bodies, to the environment, to each other.
Mm.
It's not just all in the mind, right? It's
Yeah.
embodied.
The visual that they gave me, this was so fascinating. Um, Before the words came out, they showed me like a picture of the earth and cracked in half, like
Mhm.
drought type cracked in half. And
Yeah.
so they asked to ask that question. So I find that really that's good, and I feel that's so on point. Right.
And it's as simple as, and it's a literal relationship, right? I mean, like, yes, there's so much more that needs to be done. We have actions to take. We have, systemic changes that need to be made. But really, truly, do not overlook the simplicity and the power of actually sitting on the actual ground and putting your hands on it
Mm,
and loving the earth,
yeah.
sending it love, your healing, knowing it's alive, knowing that it has provided everything that you are and everything that you need to live,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
creating that sense of connection again to our real mother, who is the earth.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true. I just did a reading the other day, and I used to call my office. There was a park right next door, and I used to do just, whatever it was I was doing out under my two favorite trees. And the reading that I did, there was a picnic table nearby. So I got to do that right in the park. It was so great. It was just, oh, could soak it up forever in a year.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Well, that connects in too with my ancestral healing because I really consider ancestral healing to also be medicine for the earth. And the reason I say that is because our ancestors and the process that I learned and that I use, we have four main ancestral lineages, right? Our father's father, father's mother, mother's 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 father, right? So there's four main lineages. And I really consider them to be our actual ancestral roots that go to the earth. And
Yeah.
that's the reason we repair these lineages is it's because these are our actual, they're part of our spiritual anatomy, our channels back to the first things. Because it just keeps going back. There's that old, I forget what story it is, but they say like it's turtles all the way down, right? Like, oh, the earth is on the back of a turtle and what's the turtle on top of? And they're like, oh, it's just turtles all the way down. I think it's a Buddhist story or something like
Oh,
that. But I
cool.
basically say it's ancestors all the way down. Before the humans, you have the animals, and before the animals, you have the plants, and for the plants, you have the ocean, and before the earth, you have the stars, which our blood is red because the iron from the stars, right? And so it's
Yeah.
all ancestors all the way back, and that's the value of ancestral healing. And part of healing the earth is it's about honoring the life that's been handed to us through these channels for eons.
What has been the most challenging accommodation in this life for you? And where have you had to give in or compromise the most. So you see, there's compromise and
Yeah.
accommodation. And I feel like there have been, so they're having me focus in on the compromise with this question, accommodating others. Do you understand?
I do understand. And I think my answer is, that, and it's something that I still struggle with as well as own, right? Is the fact that I'm an amalgamation of a bunch of pieces that other people might not think would go together, right? And so I feel like my biggest accommodation is that, I'm here in the psychic medium spiritual realm, but I don't always blend with the psychic medium spiritual realm people. I'm a little too earthy. I'm a little too Taurian. You know what I mean? I'm a little less purple, a little more green. You know what I'm saying? And so like sometimes I don't really fit in there, but then I'm definitely not one of the normies either. Like as far as they're concerned, I might as well have the antennas growing out of my head, right? And so it's kind of like I'm a mixture of a bunch of different things that I feel like has to be, it's almost like a kaleidoscope of like what is going to resonate with the people that I'm with. And not that I act like a chameleon around it, but it's just I realize that I'm this collage that is, I love being, and is a unique collage. And yet for other people, it might be a little too spicy. Do you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yes, I understand exactly then why they had me ask that question. One of the really cool things about what you're saying is that I resonate with what you're saying. It's like you're not changing yourself to you're not putting a face on to fit in, but you're accommodating so the discomfort, that the energy that you come in with can be so uncomfortable for certain people. And
Yes.
so it's like coming in with, whoa, this high frequency, and they're like, what the hell is that, and I find that I totally get it, and I find that over and over again. And so sometimes it's not changing then what or who you are, but it's just adjusting the volume at what you come in with.
Absolutely. Adjusting the volume. And I would say that my healing journey around this, my spiritual journey around this, has been that even though I'm adjusting the volume maybe for other people, how do I do that and still remain deeply connected with my feeling of myself? Right? Because
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm not trying to fake it. Right? But it's more like understanding my environment and the context that I'm in and what's actually going to land there.
yeah, yeah.
What's going to create connection versus challenge connection.
Right. So
Yeah.
you have to be really grounded in order to be able to hold that way of thinking and that way of being. And I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's
Thank you.
beautiful.
Yeah. It's a practice, that's for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Describe what it feels like to find your love, and that soul that stands right by your side. We've all been in love, but when you find that one and that soul that stands right by you, describe to me, that feeling of finally finding that one.
Honestly, we've been together for almost 10 years now. We've been married now for about 2. We're having our anniversary next week. And I would have to say that it was probably only within the last year that I realized I was living. Oh, I think I paused a little bit. It was only in the past year that I realized I was living a life that I wanted when I was 16 and didn't even know if it was possible. Right? I'm with my wonderful, loving, beautiful husband, and we have all of these wonderful animals. And it still is something I have to remind myself. I'm like, Trece, look around. You are living the life that you thought was your dream. When you were in college. And not that I don't appreciate it, but I think it's just important for people to realize that even when you get the thing that you want, sometimes it takes a long time. And when you get there, you have to remind yourself that you're there.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
what does it feel like to be with him now? It feels like it was all worth it. Not just like the building of our relationship, but even the struggles I went through before.
Mhm.
And trusting myself to not get into relationships because I wanted to be in a relationship, and really focusing on that resonance and focusing on the right person for me.
Not everybody gets that. And
Yeah.
then oftentimes, people go through bumps and hiccups and things like that. And then the one, um, and I don't think, I don't believe for any second on this planet that there's only one person for us.
Right.
However, there are certain people that come into your life that are meant to be that soul for you for that duration. And sometimes it's a lifetime, and sometimes it's a half a lifetime or a
Yeah.
third of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And they were showing me the two of you just side by side, just it's like that soul that you have, you're the other side of each other's coin, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And people don't, like you say, people forget to acknowledge, that other being that's in your space every day. Now, looking back on your life, who would you say has been the most influential and why?
Gosh, that's a big question. I have some major influences in my life, especially personal influences. Man, who would be one? Who do I want to share here? You know who I'm going to share is my spiritual mom, whose name is Susan, and I met her when I was 12 years old. And she was one of those synchronicities, a person that I met that was not, there was no reason I should have met her, and yet I did. And there was no reason that my grandmother should have felt comfortable leaving me with her, but she did, right? And she really was, at 12 years old, a person who opened up this world to me as something that didn't just exist in books or in movies or in the TV, that this was all real, and that what I was experiencing was real.
Now, this is an odd little thing. So I was waiting for the questions to come through, and Spirit brought to me a lark. And you're fairly familiar with animals in the animal world. What does a lark? Do you understand the symbology of a lark, and what does a lark mean to you?
I don't. I know it's a bird.
It is
Uh,
a bird.
I don't know what any kind of traditional or spiritual association goes with lark, but as soon as you say lark, the first thing I think of is do it for a lark, like a joke, for fun, for enjoyment, right?
Okay.
And so there's a part of me that almost feels like there's something about joy and fun that has to go along with a lark.
It must be what you're saying, going back to joy. And oftentimes when an animal comes up, lark, lark, oftentimes when an animal comes up, I'll look it up in the animal speak book, or I'll look up the symbology.
Well, according to Wikipedia, uh, the lark in mythology and literature stands for daybreak.
Oh,
The lark at the break of day arising from sullen earth sings hymns at heaven's gate. Represents the shift from night to day. So it's joy, it's celebration.
it is. That came in really loud. I had to write it down, and they're like lark. I'm like, okay. What are you talking about? What you talking about, Willis?
What you talking about, Willis? Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's
that
really,
animal message. I'll take that animal message. I'll take some daybreak joy celebration, sing up the sun. I love that.
it's my favorite time of day. Do you know that? It's just absolutely, there's a term called breaking night, and that's when you've been up all night until the sun comes up, and it's breaking night. It's my favorite time of day it's like all the darkness goes away, all of those crazy, wonky, sort of not so nice things that will happen in nighttime sometimes. And then the day comes and shines the light on the darkness, and that goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's okay when the light comes, which is kind of true, you know.
That's what I love about camping, actually. And it doesn't happen every time, but it's usually around this time of year where it's a little cooler, at least here in Texas. And you go camping, and it can get pretty cold at night out in the country at
Yeah.
this time of year. And then so sometimes I'll even wake up and you'll just be like, oh, I can't wait for morning. It's cold. I can't wait for morning. It's cold. And then you can start to hear the birds singing. But as soon as the light crests, and you can tell, right? Because like the tent lightens up, right? And as soon as that happens, it's like it's a chorus of just birds all at once as soon as the light comes.
Yeah. It's like, woohoo, we got another day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say underworld, underwater. Have you any connection to Lumeria, or is that Lemuria?
Lumiere,
Lumeria.
the other Atlantis kind of island thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or Atlantis.
Hmm.
Do you have a connection there ancestrally, or?
I don't really have, I don't consider myself to have a connection to those necessarily. I would say maybe more with the stories of Atlantis than with Lemuria for me, that I've had more resonances there, and that shows up in a lot of different places as well in various mythologies and stuff like that that I've been interested in before. But I find the story of Atlantis to be particularly relevant to us today as well, right? And I think that that's been talked about a lot by various people. But just to say that the story of Atlantis is that, we can get to a point where we are manipulating nature beyond what is actually good for nature, which means good for us.
Yeah.
Right. And that, and this is just coming to me right now, but it's one of the things that I share. This might seem like it's a big jump, but really it's related to the story of Atlantis in a way that I didn't realize. But it's one of the things that I share with a lot of people is that I don't care how psychic you are. I don't care how good of a medium you are. I don't care how spiritually powerful you are. If you're not a good person with manners, it doesn't mean anything to me. And I think that's the story of Atlantis, right? You can have all the spiritual power in the world, but if you can't hold it with a good heart, then it's only going to bring downfall.
Yeah. What's interesting is that I kept getting this vision of a dolphin, and this dolphin, not even in the water, but just this dolphin image kept coming, and he's just chatting away. And I'm like, dude, where are we going with this? And then he took me to Lemuria and to Atlantis, and to ask you about the connection that that dolphin is very strong. It feels very strong for you as well. And it just might be about the animals speaking and trying to get us to pay attention, right?
Yeah, and dolphins are clearly very intuitive and intelligent creatures too at the same time. Them like whales and really all animals, if you're paying attention, they really show us,
Yeah.
oh, hey, we're alive, we have spirit, we're here, and so I think that they're a great example to remind us that life is more than humans.
So spirit showed me a vision of you standing outside in the dark, looking up at the stars. And they said, standing under the stars, facing the sky, what comes to mind for you?
Well, first of all, I like looking at the stars and knowing that I'm looking through time, because a lot of the starlight that we're seeing, some of those stars no longer even exist. Those are millions of light years old light that is only now, after this incomprehensibly long journey, is ending in my eyeball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
It is crazy. You know what they said? They said it's communication without voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it's true.
Yeah. And one of the things I've been thinking about lately, because I heard it on a podcast, is that there was forget which culture had this, but it was an association with the Milky Way as it goes across the sky, which you have to go outside of cities now to see because there's too much light pollution. But if you just go outside, there's a very clear band of the galaxy Milky Way that you can see in the sky, and that there's actually a mirror image of that on the top of our skulls. It's the middle. It's the place where our skull bones come together in the middle, and it goes across the top of our skulls like that. And they used to consider that to be the Milky Way reflected on our heads, right? So like the sky was a dome with the Milky Way, according to this story, and our head was like the sky with the dome with the Milky Way going across it.
Isn't the cranial sutures?
Yeah, the cranial suture. That's what it is. Yeah.
This is one of the coolest parts about you, Trece, is that just by seeing some of the images that you put during this season, this is fall. They said, "Oh, how you are a man of seasons." And then they showed me fall and describe some of the things about your favorite season and what it means to you when you finally get to that season.
Well, fall is definitely one of my favorite seasons, but I would say I really like the whole holiday season these days. I used to have a lot of inner challenges around Christmas for various reasons, but that has all been completely changed with my husband and our family and the way we've celebrated that over the years. So I really love the whole holiday season. But really for me, even the reason I love fall so much is because where I live in Texas, it is unbearably hot for months upon months upon months. And so once fall comes, it is usually the first break from 3-digit temperatures. It's usually when the rains start to come back, right? Everything's just so thirsty and dry and hot. And so when it finally comes, it feels like, as funny as it is that we're moving into darkness and fall and into the colder temperatures, it reminds me of that lark, because it's almost like, oh, finally, right? Like some relief comes. Yeah.
And you posted something the other day, or was it a couple of days ago, that beautiful little white flower that comes after a rain.
The rain lily.
The rain lily. Yeah.
Yeah.
How pretty that is.
Oh, I love the rain lilies, and they are just magical because I guess you can plant them and cultivate them. I've never seen anybody do that before, but where we live, after it rains, sometimes people's whole yards will be filled with these like sparkling white flowers that just appeared. Right. And so they're really magical.
They come up just because. There you go.
After it rains, yeah, they just wait, I guess, wait until the ground gets wet again. And then all of a sudden it's like, that's where the fairies were dancing last night. Yeah.
What does music do for you?
What does music do for me? I have a really interesting relationship with music, Picasso, because I actually don't listen to a lot of music. Like a lot of people will put on music as a background thing or when they're bored or something like that. I will literally be in silence. Right. And so like I do listen to music and I enjoy it, but I'm not a music person in the way a lot of people are. I don't follow a lot of bands or musicians. I enjoy dancing a lot, but so I enjoy music in that way. And I'm also really sensitive to a lot of lyrics in music, right? And so I'm very kind of picky about the kind of lyrics that end up coming through a lot of times. And so maybe this is also a little stereotypical for a gay man, but I do love show tunes, right? So I love musical theater.
Yeah.
I love to sing. I was in the Austin Gay Men's chorus for a while there too. And so I love that kind of music and that kind of singing. And I like more modern stuff too, but I'm the last person to ask who sang that for the most part, right? So
do you play music when you're cooking?
Yeah, sometimes it depends. I'll put on either music or oftentimes I'll put on podcasts.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have that option now, right? It's something that I didn't come up with, growing up, and you're younger than I am, but we didn't have the podcasts and the internet and all of that. way back in my day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't believe I could say that, you know. I don't know why they had me bring up music, but there's something about being lyrical and you
I
know.
love to sing. I love to sing. And so even
Mhm.
without music on, I might bust out into song in the house and sing to the animals. And sometimes really just even after a reading, just to clear out my energy or even
Yeah,
build up some energy for a reading, I'll just start singing, right? And I'll just
yeah.
like let it loose. And
Tell us one thing about you that nobody knows.
one thing about me that nobody knows, I don't know if I have something that nobody knows. There's maybe stuff that few people know, but I don't know if I have anything that nobody knows.
Oh, you got zip zero.
I'm trying to think. I don't think I have anything like that. I do have stuff that very few people know about, but I don't have anything that I think nobody knows.
I stumped you, Trace.
You did. I really can't think of anything right now.
I completely stumped you.
Well, I promise that I'm not withholding any crimes or anything like that with the stuff that nobody knows about. Nothing interesting either. So
Well, that's okay. That is so funny. So we're going to go. This is one of my favorite parts of this getting to know you series. And for those of you that are happen to be on and, you know, just hanging out and listening or whatever, I'm doing this series so that you can get to know us as mediums, as psychic, as readers, as healers and intuitive teachers and all of that, so that you understand that we are accessible, that we're attainable, that you can reach out to us. And this is why we're here. But I want us I want you to know more about us so that when it's time for you to reach out, you're comfortable and you know who you're dealing with, you know who you're connecting with. And I think it's really so very important. This is my favorite part, this questionnaire. So I'm a real movie person.
Okay.
And only those around me would know that about me.
Okay.
I love movies. And one of my favorite interviewers was James Lipton. He's on the other side now. He did pass. James Lipton was an actor, but he also had a show called Inside the Actor Studio. I believe they did that at Pace College, and he would interview an actor. And at the end of the interview, he would bring the questionnaire up that was created by Bernard Pivot. And with your permission, I'd love to do this questionnaire with you.
I'd love to.
Okay, and so we'll begin. All right, Trace, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word. Well, I do have a favorite word, but I don't know if it's entirely appropriate. And it's the first thing that's coming up for me. And so, like, and the reason I say that is because it's kind of it's not really a great word, but I love the way it sounds. And it's the word oubliette. Have you ever heard of oubliette?
No.
It's a thing that used to be a part of castles back in medieval times where they would put prisoners, like a hole where they'd put people to forget about them, basically. And it was called an oubliette. But I just love the way that word sounds. And I think that I started to like that word when I first heard it in the 90s movie The Labyrinth, because David Bowie playing the Goblin King says, "I'm going to throw you in the oubliette." And I was like, what is that word? I love that word. And so it's not a pretty word in what it means, but I love the way it sounds. Oubliette.
I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
Oubliette. What is your least favorite word?
Ooh, least favorite word. Least favorite word would be I love words, so that's hard. I love a lot of words. So I'm like, what don't I like with words? Let's see here. My least favorite word would have to be, and it would only be because of the way I feel like it comes out of my mouth, right? Like the way it would have to form it to sound it out. Let's see. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I'd have to really think about that. I don't know what my least favorite word is, to be honest.
I stumped you twice.
You've stumped me twice. I'm trying to really think. Because like you said, favorite word, and even though it was kind of funny, it would just popped right into my head. My subconscious was like, oh yeah, you like that word. But least favorite word, it's like, you kind of like all words. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, this is a funny word to come forward for this. One of my least favorite words is comportment.
Comportment.
And it's about how you put yourself together in order to appear.
Oh, that's a good word. That's a good word to not like.
And I think the reason I don't like it is because I first heard it when I was going to grad school, and they were basically like, well, now you represent this profession in this grad school, and so your comportment outside of this school is just as important as inside of this school. And I was like, comport this, so yeah.
I'm with you on that. What turns you on?
What turns me on? Beautiful environments, and it doesn't have to be luxurious or fancy, but just beautiful environments. And then if there's a little red wine and some delicious food involved, it's a party. That's great. Yeah.
And what turns you off?
Oh, what turns me off? Neediness. Like graspy, kind of needy sort of energy. It very much makes me feel like,
yeah, uncomfortable. What sound or noise do you love?
Well, I've got a lot of those too, but one of the things that's coming up for me that's really personal and local is I love it at night. And it doesn't happen all of the time, but I love it at night when either the TV's off and maybe Wes is already sleeping or something like that. And I'm walking to the kitchen and all of a sudden I can hear the barred owl hooting outside the window. And it's just like a moment that's just like is exciting and beautiful. And it's just like, oh, there's the owl. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what sound or noise do you hate?
I think multiple sounds at once or multiple people talking at once. Like when it's just and it's all happening at the same time, I just get really over flooded with that.
Overwhelmed, yeah. What's your favorite curse word?
I mean, probably an oldie but goodie, which is just fuck. Yeah.
Yep. And what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, gosh. Honestly, several. Really wanted to be an actor when I was younger. And so I would still love to do acting in some capacity. I've even considered picking up voice acting on my off time, right? Because I love doing stuff like that. I've always considered my secret backup job as a flight attendant.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is I'm a weirdo. I love airports. I love flying. I love airplanes. I love all of those things. I'm very at home in an airport. My mom was a flight attendant when I was a little kid, and even when I was before I was born. And so I think I just got very used to being at airports and stuff like that. So I just feel totally at home at an airport, totally at home on an airplane.
Yeah.
I love the transitional nature of airports too.
Of moving people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear when you arrive at the pearly gates?
What would I like to hear when I arrive? You did a great job. Now have a rest because you don't have to go back for a while. Yeah.
That would be my answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's, you just did an absolutely beautiful job, Trece. Thank you so much for being here today and for having this chat with me and for allowing people to get to know you a little bit better and where you are and what you do. And thank you for being a healer and for the work that you do. I so appreciate that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Picasso. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be here and share this time with you.
So let everybody know what's going on with you. Do you have any events going on, or where they can find you on all your socials? And by the way, everybody, Trece, I'll put his social links in the description section of the video. So all you'll have to do is click on that and you'll be able to see where he is and what's going on with him.
Yeah. So I don't have any events lined up right now, but one of the things I am working on is I am writing a chapter on ancestral healing for a book that's going to be coming out next year. And so I'm working on that. So stay tuned, everybody, because I'll have lots of announcements around the book. And you can find my website. So my name, Trece, is Trece, and you can find my website at trecespalten.com. And my socials, even though Picasso said they're going to be on there, are pretty simple. It's just Trece Intuitive, both on Facebook and Instagram.
That's awesome. And I'm going to remind everybody that, while you're on here, before you hop off, hit that subscribe button and share, because the things that we went over today and in your answers, you never know what that thing is. It's going to be able to help somebody else, even though you heard it and you're like, oh, that's great. But, pass it on, because your neighbor might be, the one to need to hear those words or those messages that come through, or it just might trigger or spark an idea to help somebody get over a little hump they're trying to get over. And, I don't know, it's just one of those things. Some often people share things on social media and I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know that existed. So I think it's really important. I'm going to let everybody know that on the weekend this month, so my events are, I'm going to be at the Body, Mind, Spirit Expo in Tampa, Florida on November 12th and 13th. I'm going to be doing readings all day long from 10 to 6. And just come out and support your local readers if you're in that area. Support your local crystal sellers and rock hounds and authors and all of that. And just, if come in and say hi and just let me know that you heard this episode, and hey, I'm stopping by just to say hi. That would be absolutely mean the world to me. And then also, just an FYI, Amici Italian Restaurant is having me back on Black Friday this month. So on November 25th, when you get all your shopping done and all the crazy stuff that you have to do out there on Black Friday, come by Amici Italian Restaurant. I'm going to have a gallery event. So I'll be there, giving spirit messages, being in service to spirit. We have a lot of fun. Spirit cracks me up. They just crack me up. They have me doing things and saying things that, I would not even think of, saying or doing. And can I say that in public? Oh yeah, you can. So they'll have you laughing. They'll, I got tissues always just in case they have us crying. But they'll not have us laughing again. And it's so beautiful. And you never know, you might be that one to get that message. And even if you don't, something that comes through that evening will definitely be meant for you, for sure. So come out and see me there. Enjoy the Italian food, and you can get your tickets on eventbrite.com. Just put in Amici Italian Restaurant or Amici St. Augustine Beach, and that's that in a bag of chips. I think.
I wish I was in Florida so I could join you. That sounds so cool, Picasso.
Oh, it's so much fun. And it's in what they call their Milano room. And it's absolutely total blast. Sometimes they'll shut my lights off or turn my speaker off, or, it's a thing. It's just a thing.
Spirit has got such a sense of humor.
They do. They make me laugh. But always, it's nice to know that while I'm supporting them, they're supporting me at the same time. So it's really great. It works out for everybody. So, all right. That's it, my dear. So I want to say again, thank you for stopping in. Everybody hit that subscribe button and share.
Thank you, Picasso. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Peace.